Donald Trump giving his rapid response to the acceptance speech from Vice President Kamala Harris at the DNC on their final night. Now, if you go by his Truth Social feed, Trump was watching intently, sharing an avalanche of posts attacking Harris and others. And you know what? He immediately called into Fox News after Harris finished speaking.
The biggest reaction is, why didn't she do the things that she's complaining about? All of these things that she talked about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do everything, but she didn't do any of it. She could have done it 3.5 years ago.
He'll have to be quite specific on what he thinks she did not do. My panel is back with me right now. First of all, it's not surprising that he was going to react, although he has revealed himself to have been watching. Again, probably no surprise. All week long, they've been going at him. Does his response or the steps to go forward, what actually should they be, Shermichael?
I mean, look, again, I want to acknowledge again the moment for the vice president. History was made, first woman of color, potentially could become president. There's a lot of black women in this country who are excited, a lot of women of every race who are excited, and I certainly acknowledge that point. However, I think cost is still a big deal. That's why this race is still very close, and I think that's what the former president is alluding to. Yes, people are excited and having a good time, but does excitement address the fact that credit card defaults are up? Does it address the fact that people can't pay their car loans, that people are struggling to pay their mortgages, that people who are struggling to pay their rent, they can't guarantee whether or not they'll be able to get rental assistance before they get evicted? And so Trump needs to stay on that message if this race is to stay competitive. Talk about those details and remind people, yes, you're excited, but you need to have an adult in the room. Now, whether or not he can do that, it's up for debate.
Now, I want you to know what you're to say about that, guys, because they're painting him as somebody who is the ineffective and wrong messenger for things like you're talking about. So if you're talking about the grocery store, you're talking about the pricing of things, they're trying to paint him as somebody who this is as foreign to him as anything else. You even heard what Governor Gretchen Whitmer say, his first word was what? Chauffeur? I mean, they're really going toe-to-toe on this
Richie
point.
Rich argument.
Yeah, it is.
But we don't even have to, quote unquote, paint him that way. He consistently can't stay on his own message. And consistently on this air, in fact, we've heard Republicans saying, if only he would stay on message, if only he would stop talking about this or that, or, you know, and getting distracted.
Not just the message, though, Karen. I mean, the actual
Specific
substance.
issues.
Can he, if the issue for people and American voters right now is relatability, the authenticity, and I can see myself in you, and you are the authentic person who can solve a problem, if I think you've never experienced what I've experienced,
That's right.
can I trust you?
And that's the point, right? You can trust me because I came from the middle class. You can trust me because I'm going to be a president for all Americans. That in and of itself is a critique, is a contrast point. And what you saw on the stage after her speech, I would argue, was a stage full of family that looked a lot like America in terms of the diversity, old and young and different backgrounds. And so, again, yes, when was the last time he was ever at a grocery store, ever had to buy a gallon of milk, ever had to work a couple of hours to be able to pay for that gallon of milk?
Donald Trump weighing in on Kamala Harris's acceptance speech last night. The former president was on his Truth Social platform to react in real time to Harris's address. Our intrepid producer, Abby, counted 56 truths, quote unquote, truths over this period. The criticism, though, did go both ways. Harris had these words for Trump in her speech.
Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
All right, panel's back. Scott Jennings, I kind of want to give this one to you because Trump put these 56 posts that we counted up overnight while this was going on. He called into Fox News. Fox kind of, they spoke with him. They ended the interview. Then he called into Newsmax, continued the conversation. Then he calls back into Fox News and has this to say with Greg Gutfeld. Watch.
What difference does it make? We're doing well. We're leading in the polls.
All right, Mr. President.
8 points down.
Yeah.
And they said he has to get out, and they basically staged a coup.
Yeah.
And let's all see how it happens. But I think we're doing very well.
All right.
We're going to do very well.
All right, Mr. P, I gotta go.
sort of seems like you're trying to get him off the phone. But I mean, what did you make of his quote unquote responses?
He's doing his own bracketing. You know, that's an old campaign term that I know Kate knows. But you know, when the other side's doing something big, you try to bracket it a little bit. And obviously, the Democrats have had the attention this week. So I think that he is not wrong that he is still in a strong position in the polls. I think where he's really got to focus on is he's got one real chance to frame up this race on September the 10th. He had the race against Biden totally framed, totally pegged, and everybody.
I mean, he was on track to win that race
in a landslide, and it was strength versus weakness. And now he's got to settle on something here. I was thinking about how did he actually win in 2016, and it was kind of inside outside. Hillary was the insider. I'm coming from the outside. I've been thinking about this. Maybe, you know, it's going to be radical Democrat versus common sense conservative, but it may be that he goes back to the old 2016 framing. She's on the inside, literally on the inside of the White House, and we're coming back from the outside, and the people on the inside of the White House.
That's not going to work.
So.
I think that the most fascinating thing about this, I think the fascinating...
Is she not the vice president?
But
is she not at the center of American policy making?
I hear you, but
okay.
I don't think that's the point, though. I think the point is a lot like what Nikki Haley said, and I said this yesterday again. It's the first party that's able to actually change the person at the top of their ticket, because it's not inside versus outside, because what you saw last night was a changing of the guard. You don't have a Clinton, you don't have an Obama, you don't have a Bush, you don't have a Trump. You have a totally new figure. The country is thirsty.
She's not totally new. She is the vice president.
Yeah, that's the thing. But she is seizing the mantle. She is seizing the messaging mantle of change. I mean, a new way forward. Now you can look again. You can
That's
argue.
The fight, though. That's the fight.
So I don't disagree with this. I don't disagree with this. But she's.
You got to. Your microphone.
I know.
What are you doing?
I didn't want to cause a scene because the camera's on us. No, but listen. He used to be president of the United States. The idea that he is some insurgent coming out of nowhere
is for him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, and I mean, Kate, I think my question is the thing that Trump was saying and has been saying last night is that, okay, if she wants to do all these things, why didn't she do them over the course of the last 3.5 years? I mean, that seems to me to be the thing that, okay, like if you're a voter in a swing state, like, okay, she says the border's a problem. Like you have been part of what has been in charge. That seems to me like it could work.
I think if he were able to stick to that message, I think that is probably their best shot. I think that's probably their best lane. However, you have, first of all, I would argue she has actually a very strong record to run on. I think you saw her, again, we were talking about this earlier in the show, but you saw her take on the immigration argument last night by flipping it back on Trump. That will be the name of the game. And I mean, that's the name of the game in campaigns generally. I mean, you are trying to, to move the focus generally to your opponent. You're trying to define your opponent. I mean, I don't see a world where she's going to sit back and sort of let Trump define her time in the White House and just kind of say, okay, but here's, but there's, we know what you're going to do. You also had 4 years in office. We saw what that looked like. I just don't think there's a clean shot for Trump on this for that reason. And I also think you saw her last night really lean into this new way forward. I mean, she clearly wants to make the pivot. And I think that the country wants that too. I mean, that's the other thing. So the last thing I'll say, that's what the country wants. I mean, part of a successful campaign is the message meeting the moment, is meeting where the country wants to be. The country wants to see change. She's embracing that. Trump doesn't represent change anymore.
If you made it a comparative, though, would you take this campaign framing? If you were Trump or if you were Harris, who would you rather be? If the people walk into the voting booth and say, who gave me better results, Trump or Biden and Harris? Would you take that right now? Would you take that bet?
The problem is that you're framing. I think you're framing it wrong, and I think that you're framing.
Well, they're two incumbents.
But that is the fundamental problem.
She's never been president. He has.
But that's also not the point. Like,
okay.
You're wrong.
Everybody's screwing this up this morning.
This shirt button?
No.
First of all, I am making a statement.
Hang on. Let me get my Bakari. Here we go. Bakari.
Oh my God! No! Thank God you can barely see that on camera.
Listen.
Can I talk about the fact that this race is not about what you did for me 3.5 years ago? right? Like I think that's why everybody's wrong. This race is not about what you
No,
did
I
for
can't stop looking at him.
Can I make an actual point here and not what you're
Not what I
just-
signed up for. Yes,
Like,
Elliot, please speak to
okay,
substance.
back-
Yes,
focus,
Elliot
focus,
has the floor. Go.
Not what I
no,
signed
and
up for.
no, but to all of this, I do think the fact that Democrats pivoted a little bit away from Donald Trump as an existential threat to democracy and toward Donald Trump is not a serious person. That was a thread running through, and the mockery of him and mockery of the behavior and the 56 tweets as the vice president was speaking suggests that this is a contrast between serious people and sort of an unserious clown.
Well,
which
but
is
also,
they were-
but also,
And it gets
also
under
the,
his skin.
But the,
as well.
but the election is not about what, and this is where I said Scott was wrong, and this is where I'm saying that a lot of people frame this wrong. The election is not about the 4 years when Donald Trump was president. The election is not about the last 3.5 years. It's just not. I mean, the election is about the next 4 years, and that's what Democrats are betting on. Because and one of the problems with Donald Trump and being a prisoner of being 78 years old is he has a fundamental inability to tell me what the future will look like under him. He has not articulated a message about 4 more years for Donald Trump.